All right, good morning, everybody, and welcome back to another live stream. Today is a special sort of live stream, though, so where I typically share content related to artificial intelligence and machine learning and things like that. Today is going to be something completely different. This is just a special one-time stream. So just to set the context on what this stream is. So all of y'all may know that I work for State Farm, and State Farm partners with local schools in town to help with different STEM programs. So one of the ones that I am involved with is partnering with one of the local high schools where there's this class of high schoolers that's currently going through a class learning how to write Java code. And as part of like an end of year project, I'm mentoring this group of students through like how they would think about building their end of year project. So specifically, like when it comes to Java, they've been focusing on backend code. And so my guys with their project, they want to build something that's going to require a front end user interface. Now, before we get into the actual content here, I want to talk a little bit about that front end versus back end like dichotomy there. So, because a lot of people might be like, if you're new to code, you might be thinking, well, if I can write code to support backend, then front end might not be so bad. And let me be clear on what front end and back end are. Front end is basically anything that the user interacts with. So if it's a website, it's the interface of the website. If it's like an app, it's the interface of an app. Like the things that the customer or the end user sees. The back end is all the stuff that helps to do like support everything that would build that application. So whether that be like, shuffling things to and from a database, things like that. So when it comes to the front end versus the back end side, generally speaking, because these are two different skill sets, you will see people that are more fixated on the back end stuff, and then you will have people that are more fixated on the front end stuff. So front end developers are typically using things like HTML, CSS, JavaScript, or maybe using a framework like React. Whereas back end folks, they're not building any sort of back end sort of or front end sort of interface. They're probably dealing with code like Python or Java or stuff like that. So I am a staff machine learning engineer. And if you've been with me in any of my other streams, you will know that basically I exclusively write back-end code. Now, to help support myself, knowing that like there are times when I want to build a user interface, there are these third-party libraries out there that help users like myself, who are primarily back-end code developers, to build a very simple user interface. So again, if you've been with me for some time, you will know that I've used Gradio for Python. A lot of people like to use Streamlit for Python. And so what I wanted to do is to help my guys out at the high school is I wanted to see, is there a way to help make them like the front end stuff extremely easy, so that way when they're thinking about their project, they can focus just on that back end stuff almost exclusively. Sorry, I shifted my hat and it went the other. I forgot I'm mirrored. All right, so let's go ahead and jump into what we're going to be covering today. So this is going to be a two-part stream. So in the first part, we're going to build the user interface itself via a web-based form. So it's going to look like something like a Wix or a Squarespace if you're familiar with those services. And then we'll download that code from the website, the site that we'll be using, and then altering that backend to be able to like make use of our own custom code appropriately. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. And just for context, I am building a full tutorial in the form of text as well here. So like this stream today is really just a complement to all this content here. So like if you're more of a video learner, this is what this stream is definitely for you. If you're more of a, hey, I'd rather just have a text-based tutorial, this is what this is for. And you can see here, like I'm putting screenshots in here, trying to make things as simple as possible. It's not quite done as I'm streaming right now. Like I have all the content done. I just like in terms of like, I know what I want to do here. I just need to go and update this. So I'll probably update this throughout the remainder of this weekend. So hopefully we'll have all this done. Yeah, so what we're going to be doing, just to keep things simple, is we're going to be building a pizza maker app. In fact, I'll go ahead and just show you what it kind of looks like here. So what the pizza maker, or I guess it's a pizza order taker, if you will, and ignore that like that this is a little bit funky looking for now. I'll show you the final product here in a little bit. But basically what we're going to do here is we're going to have a thing where you're allowed to select your toppings. I guess it's toppings and crust size. So you select your single crust size. So that's going to be small, medium, large, extra large. And then we'll have, this is going to be a multi-select option thing. So if you want pepperoni and sausage, you can do all that. And then same with the veggies. Now this is incorrect here, but we will show how you can add a tip. So we're going to set these to be like 15%, 18%, 20%, and then a custom amount. And then there will be a secondary view that I'll show here in a minute where we actually submit the order and then it just shows like the order confirmation. So keeping things as simple as possible and trying to kind of demonstrate tangibly how this service is going to work. So speaking of the service, we are going to be using this thing called Vaadin. And so what Vaadin is very much, or Vaadin, I don't know how that's pronounced, so I apologize if I'm screwing that up. So what this is, I mentioned that as a Python developer, I use Gradio or Streamlit. This is very similar, except it's actually a little bit better in a regard. So with Streamlit and Gradio, there isn't like a builder per se, but like with this website, what you'll see is like this is like a drag and drop builder. And the one thing that I really like about this website is when I think about, so you'll see in the tutorial that this will work regardless if you have a Windows machine or a MacBook. However, like, so my high school guys, they use Chromebooks, and I personally like to use an iPad for all my development work, and this is going to work just great for all that stuff as well. Now, if you're using an iPad, I did find one little gotcha there where you have to use the Opera web browser, so that you have to you can download that for free. It wouldn't work in Safari, but I found that any Windows-based browser like Chrome or a Chromebook or anything else works just fine. So let's go ahead and get into things here. So the way that we get to Vaadin here by going to the Vaadin website, and then we're going to go ahead and jump in here to create our app. Now you can see I've already created a couple test apps, and I'm not going to build out the entire thing here. I'm going to just show a little bit of how I built out the pizza maker, and then we'll actually just go ahead and download my pizza. Well, I'll go ahead and show this here. So this is my pizza maker. We'll come back to this in a minute, but let's actually just build a new project from scratch. All right, so I'm going to call, I'm not sure why I did that. Delete. Is this still got my stuff? Okay. Just want to make sure I didn't delete anything by accident. Why does it keep doing that? It should be creating a new app. So let me see if I can just refresh this whole screen and maybe it'll... Okay, so I'm not sure why I was doing that. Okay, so when you open this up, this is the very first thing you're going to see. So I'm going to call this my pizza maker, or pizza maker. I'm going to just call it pizza maker stream just to indicate like this is the live stream version. So after we've created this first thing here, what we can do is we can go ahead and add our views. So our views basically represent each of our respective screens. So in terms of our pizza maker here, we're just going to have two views. We're going to have the order taker form itself, and then we're going to submit the form, and then we're going to have like an order confirmation screen as the secondary view. Now, you'll notice here when we add this view, it'll give us two different options that we can work with. We are going to stick with the Flow version or the Java version. Now, again, so as you get more into development, you will discover that a lot of developers who do front-end work prefer to work in React. However, React is, I believe, more like JavaScript-based, and therefore not necessarily conducive to our project here since we're focusing on Java. So I'm going to go ahead and open a flow, and I'm going to just do a generic area with content area. So what this is going to do, and then I'm going to give my name a view. I'm going to call this the order taker view, order taker, as such. All right, so now you can see here off on the left that we have all these different sort of components here. And then you can see off on the right, we have a blank canvas that we can work with. All right, so the way that we can well, the first thing that I want to do, well, no, sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit. We can just drag things basically onto this interface as we see fit. So, so I'm just going to grab a header one, and then so then you can actually go ahead and make direct edits to like some of the text fields. However, as we get into this, you'll discover that we actually can't like alter like all the text of these different components that we'll add, and I'll explain why in a little bit. Now, oh, I guess one thing I should have mentioned here as well is, so you will see that I'm actually logged in as an authenticated user to the Vaadin website, and the reason that I am is because like you don't actually have to be an authenticated user. It's just that like if you don't do that, then Vaadin won't save your work. And so yeah, so like that's why I went ahead and signed up. It's a free account, free sign up. All you need is an email, so that's why I went ahead and did it. All right, so I'm gonna add the pizza maker. So I just added that as a standard header, and then I'm gonna say I'm gonna add a header 2 down here. And I'm gonna say create your pizza below. All right, so now I'm gonna add a horizontal divider. So just again dragging and making use of like the builder here. So it's actually really easy to use this builder, and that's why I kind of like it. Now, the one thing I will say about this builder is this is purely a look and feel builder. There is no capability of actually doing any sort of what I call like behavior here. So like building custom functions to be able to calculate things. So with our pizza maker here, like what you'll see is we're going to calculate like a subtotal on the fly. So as you select like your crust and as you add your toppings, it will dynamically update the subtotal. There is no way in this Vaadin builder here to actually like make that happen. And that's what part 2 of the stream is. So we're just focusing on building the look and feel here. All right, so selecting your toppings. Now you'll notice you may recall here in my like what I was showing that I have like 3 different like columns here that are the different like represent the different selectors here. So the way that you can do that in the Vaadin thing here is that you can just go here and add like either a horizontal or a vertical sort of like layout thing, and then so you can see I'm going to drag that in here. And it's kind of hard to tell, but like there is actually a horizontal thing going on here. And so then I can add like like these combo boxes or menus here. So if I go, I'm going to go down here to these different input fields. So with crust size, you just get 1 crust size. Obviously you can't have a medium and a large pizza on the same pizza. It doesn't make sense. Whereas with the toppings, we can add multiple toppings or not add multiple toppings. So with the crust size, I'm just going to make that a standard combo box. Or I'm sorry, is that a combo box? Yeah, a combo box. So I'm going to drag this over to here into our horizontal layer here. Now you can see here as I mouse over the combo box here that it is like fixated off to like on the left here, and that's just indicating that we are working within our horizontal box here. So if I want to add like the next one, which is like the meats selector, like the meat topping selector, I'm going to add a multi-select combo box, and you can see here I can just keep dragging these things on over. Now you'll see that we have our 3 boxes here. So you can do things like resizing if you want. So if you want to make this like a minimum of I think like 100 pixels or something like that, then you can do so like that. Or well, let's see if like maybe it was already 100, so let's make it 200. Okay, so it did widen it a little bit. I'm not gonna I'm not gonna worry too much because I already fiddled around with it in the other view that we're actually going to be working with. So but this is what I wanted to highlight here. So you can update the box, like the box titles here. So I can say this is crust size. This is going to be our meats, and this is going to be our veggies that we can add. But the one thing that you can't do here is you can't go and add the actual choices here. We're actually going to have to go add the choices for each of these respective like these selectors in the actual code itself. So, all right. By the way, I am taking comments and questions on the on YouTube or LinkedIn, and that's why I'm a little bit distracted because I was just reading a comment. Yes, so there's a comment in here asking if I will do more streams on data engineering and ML engineering. Definitely. I want to get back to it more. Sincerest apologies like that I have not been as attentive. I'm working on AI agent streams and more on stuff around like retrieval augmented generation. So more to come on that. So yeah, this is just a special stream to help out the guys that I'm mentoring along here. So, all right. So coming back into here with our content. So I'm going to add another horizontal divider. So I'm going to add it to the bottom, and I'm going to say add a tip. I'm going to say you want to add a tip, just a typical header here. All right, so add a tip. And then I'm going to add like these radio buttons. So this is what we call like like these things where you can actually select one of each of these. Now this is what I was referring to earlier. So you could see that it comes up with a few default choices, but I am not able to update these directly in the interface. The only thing I can update here is this little text here. So I can say %. But in order to actually update the choices itself here, that's where we're going to have to download the code and then make use of it. Now, one thing I do want to highlight here is we've been using like the builder view like so far. So you can see up here, oops, I don't know why I did that, but I hope you could see up here, there's like a pencil icon that kind of shows like the edit view. Now, if you want to show like a live view of it, now you can just go to like the eyeball and then you can kind of interact with it and then kind of see how this is going to like feel as you go along. And then if you want to go back into your builder view, then you can go back to the pencil icon, and then you can see actually over here, see the source code. We're going to ignore this for now because we will be delving back into this in the second part of this stream. So that's how you kind of build the form. Now, if you want to add a secondary view, so like a view that represents our confirmation screen. So I'm going to add a secondary view. Same idea here. I'm going to just call this confirmation screen. Confirmation screen. And I will actually update the route here. I'm going to call this confirmation screen as well, because this is how we will know like to make specific use of this like screen. Like, what am I trying to say here? When we have our previous view here, and I didn't even add a submit button, so I'm going to add the submit button down here. Where is the button? So I'm going to add just the submit button down here. Submit. Yeah, I've got edit text, submit order. Okay, so when we click this button, it's going to go into this other view here, and so we need to be able to reference this other view here, and that's what this route was referring to. So we'll get back to that in part 2 of the stream. Okay, so I'm not even going to worry about building I'm gonna call it here for. Put a pin in this here and just go back to my other one that I'd already started working with. Okay, so I'd already built this here and just want to show the confirmation screen what it looks like. So what it looks kind of goofy here because what I did is I added a bunch of these. I think what are they called? Yeah, these like these containers, this detail kind of thing. Again, this is the same sort of concept here. I can't update this on the Vaadin site here. I can only update a few different text elements. So just a little bit of a gotcha there. And so you could see here, so what I want to do here is with the order details is I want to have these as collapsible fields so you can open this and say, okay, this is the crust size, or here's the toppings I selected, or the meat toppings and versus the veggie toppings. And then down here, we're going to have the various details here. Now, I'm not going to be able to get this far in the stream to necessarily show like every single little thing here, but that's what the text tutorial is going to hopefully highlight for you all. All right, so that is that. So that wraps up this. Now, one thing you might notice here is I have a different font here in this view. So if you want to change some like the aesthetics about like how your application shows up, we can go up here at the top left where it shows the views, and we can update the theme. So if you want to toggle this open, if you want to make this a dark mode application, I'm just going to keep it light mode. If you want to change the typography, so I changed the typography to this, the font type to this coming soon font type. And then you can change the fonts, like different various things here. So I've already got everything good into where I want, like I'm happy with my stuff. So we're getting close to ending part 1 of our stream here. So the final part of part 1 here is then we just download our project. So this is going to prepare everything that we need in order to be able to do our work here. Now, I do include this all in the text interface as well, or I'm sorry, the text tutorial. So just to kind of run through what each of these fields are. So artifact ID, as I understand it, is basically just like the name of your project, more or less. Group ID would refer to like the well, I'm not exactly sure. I'm not a Java developer. I'm more of a Python developer, so I'm not 100% sure what this does. But like you can see that like I'm just calling it my name and then .pizzamaker. And then some of these other things I think are like defaulted already selected for you, but just in case. So we're going to use this Python 24.6 platform version. We're going to be using Java 21. And then keeping Java the same, keeping NPM the same, keeping H2 the same. I don't even know what this H2 thing is. For our purposes, we're not even going to use this. So, and then I'm just going to uncheck all these boxes. Okay. So then what we can do then is we just download this. Okay. So you can see that I have had a downloader already started, and it will have downloaded all my stuff to here appropriately. So you can actually, I'm going to go ahead and delete this. This is the one I just downloaded, but you can see I've already got, well, no, I'm going to keep that here. My apologies. So I'm going to delete some of these extra things in here. All right. So, and I'm going to delete that one. And so then I'm just going to unzip this. So we can unzip, you can unzip however you typically unzip, and then you'll see that we have a number of files that we can work with here. All right, so that effectively ends part one. So that part one is just covering building the look and feel of whatever sort of application that you want to build on the Vaadin website, and then downloading it to alter and make use of appropriately. Now, let's move into part two. And part two starts to get a little bit more complex, especially as we try to install everything that we need for our dependencies. So as part of my tutorial over here, I do include instructions on how to run everything on a Windows computer or a Mac computer. However, for the purposes of our stream today is I'm actually going to recommend this service called GitHub CodeSpaces. And I actually did an intentional stream if you would like to learn more about GitHub CodeSpaces holistically. But what GitHub CodeSpaces is basically a VS Code in a very managed form. And so all you need in order to make use of GitHub CodeSpaces is a GitHub account, which almost all developers have their own GitHub account. It's free to sign up for. And the nice thing about GitHub CodeSpaces is they do have a free tier to it, and the free tier is pretty generous. So if let's see if where are the quotas here, but well, I can't find the quotas, but the quotas are going to be generous enough to like that you're not going to have to worry too much about this. But the reason that I like GitHub CodeSpaces is that I mentioned before with like coding, particularly on an iPad or a Chromebook, those are devices that are not really conducive for like what I would call like enterprise level coding. Like you would have to do that, you would have to have like a legit Mac or a legitimate Windows machine. However, GitHub CodeSpaces is all running up in Microsoft's cloud, meaning that all you theoretically need is all you need is a web browser. So that's why I really like GitHub CodeSpaces, because again, I mentioned that I really like doing all my personal development on an iPad. And if you have a Chromebook, you can do all that as well. And the other nice thing is we have to set up a number of dependencies in order to make our software work. And GitHub CodeSpaces just really makes that much easier. And again, I do include instructions if you do want to do all the same things that we're doing on Mac or on Windows here, but you'll just discover like really quickly that using GitHub CodeSpaces is just makes that just a lot easier. Okay, so how do we do that? How do we make use of GitHub CodeSpaces this way? All right, so let me go to GitHub. All right, so the first thing that we're going to need to do is create a new repository. Now, if you're not familiar with what a repository is, so here's all my various repositories. It's basically like I don't want to say a GitHub project because there actually is such a thing as a GitHub project, which we'll not ignore, but it's a place where you can manage your code by your various project they're working on. So for example, you'll see here that I got my Whetstone project that I'm working on here. So you can see that I have all my code here in all these various folders, or what we refer to as directories. And then you can see here that I have a README down here that's kind of just highlighting different things. And then so this is where my Vaadin stuff is. So the reason I bring this up here is you need to have a a GitHub repository in order to effectively make use of GitHub CodeSpaces. And again, this is all free stuff, so I'm trying to be extra cognizant about cost because you know, I remember I was actually just remembering when I was in college and I didn't have any money, and I was begging people, like going around the dorm begging anybody for a quarter so I could buy a gallon of milk. So I am very cognizant about cost. All right, so the way that we create a new repository is we go into our this green button here. Now this is assuming you've already signed up for a GitHub account, and signing up for a GitHub account is just like signing up for anything else, so nothing complex there. So here, don't worry about the template, repository template thing here, but we do need to give our repository name. So I'm gonna just call this Vaadin stream tutorial. I'm gonna delete this later. Because I'm not gonna need it later. And then you can give it a description. I'm gonna this part doesn't matter. Vaadin description tutorial. Okay, like that. And then we can ignore basically everything else here, and nothing else here is really all that important. Okay, so now we've created our repository. So here's our empty repository here. So the way that GitHub CodeSpaces works is basically like you define like a blueprint, if you will, of how you want like all of your dependencies and stuff to be managed, and then we'll use the user interface to here in GitHub CodeSpaces to actually build our code space for us. And again, if it sounds daunting, like a code space is really just VS Code. And you'll see it for yourself here. It's going to look like VS Code on the Mac. It's going to look like VS Code on your Windows. That's why I really like it. And the other nice thing I like about it as well is it will integrate with GitHub Copilot, which is like the AI coding tool. There's actually a free tier now for GitHub Copilot. So anyway, so what we need to do in order to like set that blueprint, if you will, is it's using this special file called a dev container JSON file. I'm not going to talk today about what a container is necessarily, but I'm just going to show you how you get started here. So, all right, so I actually went ahead and created the blueprint file for us. So what we're going to need to do is within our repository here is we're going to need to create this folder called .dev container. And then within this .dev container folder, we have our dev container JSON, and we're just need to copy and paste this out to our new file. So I'm just going to copy this stuff here. And then I am going to go back into this new repository here. And just in the user interface here, I am going to go into create a new file. And then I'm going to call this .dev container / and then you can see it kind of creates a new folder for me and then I'm going to do .dev container or not dot. I don't know if y'all it auto-filled something there, and I don't know why I did that, but I think it's funny, but I'm not going to say why that's funny. But if you're watching, you know why. Yeah, anyway. So dev container.json. All right, so and then I'm just going to copy and paste this stuff in here. All right, so then I'm going to commit the changes. So I'm going to just commit the changes and then just click the green commit button here. Do I want to discard them? No, I don't have any. Yeah, so that did save it properly. All right, so let's talk about what this is doing here. So in order to make use of this here, like a lot of, if I'm stumbling over my words here, is I'm trying to be careful knowing that like I'm not like a seasoned Java developer. So I'm going to try explaining this the way I understand this the best. So whenever we make use of like software like Java or even JavaScript or even Python, we have to download some extra stuff to help make it work. And so the analogy that I like to use is think about the smartphone in your pocket. It doesn't matter if it's an Android or an iPhone. When you bought that smartphone the first time, it came with a number of default installed apps. So it's gonna have a text messaging app, it's gonna have a notes app, it's gonna have a phone app, etc. Those are all defaults. Now, let's say that you want to make use of Facebook, or if you want to make use of TikTok or anything else. Now you have to download an extra third-party app. And so you would go to like the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store and download that app. appropriately. So it's the similar. It's a similar idea with coding. So with Java or with Python or with any of these other coding languages, is you have a number of features that you can come baked directly into that code. So imagine, that's the correlate of like the default Notes app or the default text messaging app on your smartphone, and then you have the third party stuff that you need to install. So specifically for us, we need to make use of Vaadin. So what we are going to do here is we need to install a couple things that Vaadin needs. So one of these things that we need is this thing called Maven. And Maven is, the way I understand it is basically the tool that helps us to download everything that we need specifically for our our project, and we'll demonstrate that a little bit more here in a few minutes. And then we have Spring Boot, and what I understand Spring Boot to do is it's basically like a launching platform to be able to launch Java applications. And I think this is a very common way that people use Java these days. Again, I am not a Python or a Java expert. I'm a Python guy, trying to explain this in the best way that I know how. All right, so I think this is all good to go. All right, so now to actually build the GitHub CodeSpace itself, we just open this toggle off on the left. You will notice here we have this space called CodeSpaces, and oh, that freaked me out for a second. The maintenance thing is like, oh no. Are we not going to be able to do the stream today? Okay, so you can see I already have a couple of GitHub CodeSpaces here down where I've been working on things. Now, the nice thing about CodeSpaces is I did mention that there is like a free tier and that the free tier has a quota associated to it. The nice thing is if you are doing your work and you walk away, it will go dormant after like 30 minutes. So unless you're doing extremely heavy work, like I would not worry about hitting that tier quota. Like the tier quota is pretty generous. So huge thanks to Microsoft and the GitHub team for like offering this service. So anyway, so we can create our new CodeSpace by going up here to New CodeSpace, clicking that green button. All right, and then we have our different options that we can select here. So we're going to go and look for our repository that we just created. Recall that I named this as Vaadin Stream Tutorial. We'll keep this branch as main. Now, it automatically detected here that we do have a dev container configuration. So that was this thing, the file that we built in here. So that's what it's referring to. It's actually like grabbing the name here, which is why it's listed as such. And then we have our machine type. Now, for our purposes, 2 core is totally fine. If you were to elevate your choice of core, like machine type here, then just know that like it just whittles down what you can do in terms of like your tier usage more quickly. So just stick with the 2 core. And what this is going to do is it's going to create our code space. Now this is going to take a minute or two to get going because what it's doing here is it's downloading all the dependencies into the code space that we need here, and basically prepping everything that we would need. Now the other reason I like GitHub CodeSpaces is I use VS Code on my Windows machine. I use it on my Mac. And so I have specific settings that I like. So you'll notice one of the settings here is just this special theme that I like. It's a special color. Nothing special about it. It's just like a different coloring. It's called Atom One Dark Pro. And then it's also got other various settings. So like that's another reason I really like GitHub CodeSpaces. So you can see here it's still kind of loading some things up. It's building our code base. Well, I guess you can't see because my face is in the way. Let me move my face. But you can see in the bottom right there, oh, it just went away. It looks like we're good to go. So yeah, this is GitHub CodeSpaces. So again, GitHub CodeSpaces equals basically VS Code in the browser, and that's why I really like it. All right, so now that we have done this, now we need to get our code up into here, and so that is as simple as taking our files here. And then basically doing a drag and drop, or I guess you can upload them directly. What is the best way to do this? I'm just going to drag and drop them in here. So I'm going to take my files, drag and drop them in here, and yeah, so then it will build all of our files here. Now, let's talk about what Vaadin built for us here, because this can get a tiny bit confusing, because you can see they added a bunch of files for us. For the most part, the good news is that we can pretty much safely ignore almost all files that are in here. So a lot of these are just like extra helper files. So I'm not going to worry too much about them. So the core of what we're going to do, or where we're going to be interacting, so we can make this bigger. Okay, making this bigger for y'all, is when we go into the Java files back here, you'll notice it starts going into this like nested file directory thing. And then we open our views. Now you can see the two specific views that we created for our work here. And so you can see like our order taker Java file, and then you have our confirmation screen Java file. These are the only two files we will be updating. The other files here are important and definitely don't go. You don't want to. You need them still. I would encourage you don't touch these, just because you don't want to necessarily mess around with anything here. But just want to highlight here. It's daunting that it's Vaadin gave so many files to us, but it's actually we only need to interact with two of them here. So let's open up our order taker view here, and let's just kind of walk through what Vaadin did here, and then kind of start making our alterations appropriately. Okay, so what you can see here is at the top we had to do a bunch of Vaadin had to do a bunch of imports here. So again, this is this idea of back to the whole iPhone analogy or smartphone analogy, where Java has all the different things that it can do natively. However, in order to make use of Vaadin, we need to download or import everything that we would need from Vaadin in order to make this work. So as you can kind of see, like it should kind of seem a little bit straightforward on what we're importing. Excuse me. So like, for example, you can see we're importing our button, or we're like this H1 stuff that represents like our heading 1 or a heading 2. And so as we continue to scroll on down, you'll notice we have our class here, our public class, that our order taker view, that like we don't necessarily need to worry about this too much. But within this order taker view function sort of thing here, you'll see all this different content here. Now, to be completely transparent, I think well, I really like what Vaadin is doing here in terms of like having this user interface and having a thing that people can download. That's awesome. What I am not as thrilled about is how jumbled this is all here is. Like this is all kind of messy to me. And so what I'm actually going to encourage is, and this is the only portion of the project in which I would specifically encourage ChatGPT. Like, and I got to be careful here because I want here I'm gonna stop sharing for a second. The reason I have to be careful here is that like a lot of developers, including myself these days, are using AI assistant coding tools. They are very helpful. However, I'm trying with this project to not lean on ChatGPT too much because I still see a value in people learning the concepts of coding and such. So in the real world, when you get out into like the workforce, it is totally common to use AI coding tools like ChatGPT or like GitHub Copilot, things like that. And this is the only portion of the project in which I'm going to recommend this, and that is only because we're basically just going to use it as a reformatting tool. Okay, so let me go back to sharing my screen. All right. So what I'm going to recommend here is that, so if we go to chatgpt.com, the nice thing about ChatGPT specifically is you can actually interact with ChatGPT in a way that you don't have to log in or sign up or pay anything. So I personally do have a ChatGPT Plus account that I do pay for, but I have intentionally logged out here to demonstrate that you still can use this. So a couple things about using generative AI. And again, generative AI is what ChatGPT is. It's basically a form of artificial intelligence where you give it a input, or what we call a prompt, and then it will produce something for you, some sort of output appropriately for you. So a couple things to be cautious about. Number one is you don't want to put any sensitive information in here. So you don't want to put a social security number in here. You don't want to put like a credit card number in here or something like that. And one of the big reasons for that is, especially if you are not a plus subscriber like I am, is if you read these terms and conditions, ChatGPT is pretty transparent that they say, hey, whatever you put in here as a free user, we're going to use to train our future models on. So again, that's why you don't want to use it. But for our cases here, we're just using like simple boilerplate Vaadin code, so there's nothing sensitive here. But the other thing you do need to be cautious about when using generative AI is this concept of hallucinations. And so what a hallucination is a confident but incorrect response from the AI model. So like, for example, if you were so it's like these models have been updated since, but like a couple years ago, like when ChatGPT first came out, so Queen Elizabeth was still alive at that point. So if you were to ask ChatGPT at that point, when did Queen Elizabeth pass away, it would say she didn't pass away. She's still alive. So she passed away in, I believe it was September 2022. And so if you were to ask that same model then, again, like even after she's passed away, when did Queen Elizabeth pass away? The AI model, the ChatGPT at that point would have said she's not passed away, she's still alive, which is incorrect. Now the latest models have been trained on the most recent information. So if I were to ask that question, in fact, I'll go ahead and ask it. When did Queen Elizabeth pass away? It will get this right. It should get this right. Yeah. So you can see it is correct now. All right. So I'm going to go back to this interface here. So what the way that we get the best results from using ChatGPT is using this concept called prompt engineering. And prompt engineering is basically providing very specific instructions on how you want the output to look like. And so for our purposes, you will see here in the tutorial that I've already given you a little bit of prompt engineering in the tutorial here to do what I want to do. So let's come on down. All right, so you can see, hold on. So I'm going to go ahead and paste this in here. So it's basically, I'll go ahead and read it aloud. Below, I'm going to paste some code that's generated by Vaadin to support a user interface with the Java-based backend. The code is functional, but not necessarily intuitive. Could you please add or help me clean up this code? Please make the variable names more descriptive and also add annotated comments where it is appropriate. Do not make any alterations to the functionality of the code itself. And then this is the point where I can paste in my code. So I can't recall if well, I think I do need to go and paste it in. So I'm just gonna do a control A, Control C, or Command A, Command C to copy and paste. Or to select all and then copy, and then a Control V to go ahead and paste it all in. So it's all pasted in, and so I'm going to go ahead and submit click this submit button, and you should see that we start to get a completion down here that represents exactly what I am desiring. So it'll take a second here to generate. All right, so we'll let it complete generating here in a second. All right, come on. I don't know why it keeps doing this thing of like wanting to scroll back up. Okay, there we go. There we go. And then I'll leave it like it, so you can even see. So we could just, the nice thing about the user interface here is that there is a copy button, so we can just copy that or click that, and then it'll copy that to our clipboard that we can paste later. But I just want to kind of come down here, and it'll specifically say, here's what we changed. And so you can see here like H1, H2, and H3 have been respectively updated to like these titles, and then we have our piece of order form here, and then we have like the different things that were changed here. So let's go ahead and go back into our VS Code or our GitHub CodeSpaces specifically, and I'm going to go ahead and select all of that, and I'm going to paste it all back in. Now we everything should be looking good at this point. So before we go and alter any code here, well, actually, you know what? I should not have done this yet. So let's go back to our raw code. So this is our raw code here. This will actually run right now. So I want to demonstrate how we can run it and how we can view it. So the way that we do that is GitHub CodeSpaces actually has a built-in terminal into it. So we can actually do that by like up here on the top corner here, you can see that there's a toggle panel. So you can also press Command J or Control J, and it will also open it up. And so now we have a terminal here. So then we can, if we type in the command ls, so that, I can't remember what that stands for, but that basically lists out because we are at the top level here, so this is the top level, and then you can see here that we have our pizza maker in here. So in order to get into our pizza maker folder, we just go cd, which stands for change directory. So again, in the computer science world, we don't necessarily call these folders. We refer to these as directories. So that's why you will hear. I'm trying to refer to them as folders just to make it clear for y'all. But if I use the words directory, that is the more common verbiage that we use as developers. All right, so cd, I'm going to go into our pizza maker. Okay, so, and then if you type the clear command and press enter, then it just kind of makes everything nice and clean for y'all. And let me move my face out of the way just to make things perfectly clear on what's going to happen. All right, so so what's going to happen here is we need to use Maven. So if you recall, I mentioned that Maven is going to help us download all of our specific dependencies that we need. And so Maven is already installed on here with GitHub CodeSpaces. So again, if you are running this on Mac or Windows, I do provide instructions on how to get Maven going. But Maven's already good to go here for us with GitHub CodeSpaces. Another reason why I love GitHub CodeSpaces. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to download and uninstall all those dependencies. The simplest way to do that is just by running the Maven command. So that is going to be mvn, Maven for short, Maven clean install. So what this is going to do is it's going to, what's actually doing is because we changed it to this pizza maker directory, you'll notice that we have this pom.xml file. Don't worry too much about this, but the only thing I want to highlight here is this is what the Maven clean install is referring to know how to install like everything that we need from Vaadin, and this is provided to you from Vaadin. We don't need to make any alterations to this. We don't really need to do anything with this file. I just kind of wanted to make clear on like how Maven knows to install all our dependencies here. All right, so doing this for the first time can take a minute or two, or could already be done. So, but we don't have to do this every time. This was just we got all of our dependencies and we downloaded everything appropriately in here. Now, another thing that I want to call out here is that you'll notice that as we start to run these commands, we're starting to get a lot more files being added to our repository here. And you might be wondering, why are these files not showing up in my tutorial here? Like, why are all these extra files not into here? And the reason for that is I intentionally had them not be pushed up into there, because you'll see here really quick. So right now, here, going back into here, what this is representing here is these are all the files that have been added or made changes to. So far we've added 95 files. This is going to come over 10,000 here in a little bit because like all these different dependencies that we have to download. So the way that we can tell GitHub that, hey, we don't want to push up all these frivolous files into there, is we use this thing called the getignore file. So that is why like in my repository or in my tutorial here, you will notice that like all these files are not here, and that's just because like I intentionally did not have them pushed up into GitHub like this. Okay. So Vaadin has downloaded all of our dependencies. I'm going to go ahead and type clear just to have a clean space. Now we are ready to go ahead and run our project. So the way that we run our project, again, we are using Spring Boot to run the project. So we're going to just do mvn spring-boot :run. I think that's the command. I don't have that Oh, apparently I do have that memorized. Well, all right. So this is the very first time this builds is it's preparing all again. You'll see this number shoot up here in a minute. So the very first time we run this, it's going to take a little bit to get going. But every time we run this thereafter, then it won't take as long. Now, the one thing I want to highlight here is you could see here the browser is in the process of opening a new tab. So what it is doing is on your local machine, this was going to run on something called the local host at a port 8080. Now, because this is GitHub CodeSpaces, they do have a different little thing here for that. Oh, one thing I should have mentioned as well: when you create a new GitHub CodeSpace, it assigns I don't know what you call it, like a strange name to it. Like this is just like a dynamically generated name. So obviously I didn't create this. So in case you're wondering, like, why does it say cautious invention? That's just a GitHub CodeSpaces thing. Don't worry too much about that. All right, so if I click this open button here, you'll notice that I think it's still in the process of building. But after it's done being in the process of building, we should see like basically what we built from Vaadin directly. All right, and that worked. So you can see here are our various things here. Again, this is running directly from GitHub CodeSpaces. This is not the Vaadin website, and this is basically the thing that we're going to be working with at the end of the day. Now, the one thing I do not know how to do is with other frameworks, like as I'm altering this code, like the other, like that view that we were just looking at will dynamically refresh. I could not figure out how to get it to dynamically refresh. So unfortunately, the only way I got it to figure out basically update with our new changes is by shutting down the application and then rebuilding it. So the way that you shut down the application from the terminal here is you just do a Control C. So Control C will kill it, and then we just, if we want to rebuild the thing, then we just run the same Maven Spring Boot command here, and it will run it all again. And this time it should be a little bit faster, just because like this is not the first time we've run it, at least in this GitHub code space. But you can see here, like I was highlighting, 10,000, 10K, yeah. So again, all these files are important. It's just that like I don't want all this gobbledygook pushed up to GitHub, because then it just makes things extra confusing. Again, when it comes to like, because even though we are generating so many different files here, we are only going to be working in just the two files here, or the order taker view and the confirmation screen view. And within your own respective project, all these you could safely ignore. Don't touch these; they're still important, but we don't have to mess with them. We do need to keep them around. All right. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and close this out. So this was what do you call it? Like the default code. So now I'm going to go back and grab my code that ChatGPT generated for us. And then I'm going to come back in here. And then I'm going to paste this all in here. Okay. And then hopefully ChatGPT didn't alter any of the behavior of the code, so that when we run this, it should just run again without any problems. Fingers crossed. Okay. And okay. And just for oh shoot. All right, what happened here? Cannot find symbol. Cannot find symbol label. All right, I'm not sure what's going on here, so I'm going to actually just ask what is going on here. So this is using GitHub Copilot. Yeah, this is the one thing that kind of made me nervous. Now, the one thing I want to highlight here is with my tutorial is I have like a raw folder and like the final folder. So the raw folder represents the files as they were downloaded directly from Vaadin with no alterations to them. And then the Pizza Maker folder represents the final project. So if you want to reference something that actually does work, and like I can confirm that it works, I'm looking at the wrong file here, then I would recommend that you look at this file here. This code for sure works, and I have annotated it with comments and such to make it extra clear what's going on. But anyway, let's come back into here and figure out why this did not work. All right, so option item. Oh, I see what happened. It's because it changed something in here, but it didn't. Well, I thought I understood what was happening. Can't find them. Fix this, parameterize the components. All right, so I'm just going to apply this and see what happens. Applying the code block. Okay, so what it's wanting to do is just, yeah. Okay, so hopefully that makes everything all right now. Apologies for that. And let's see that it works fine now. It appears like, oh, no. All right. I'm trying to think of the best way to approach this, given that. So to be transparent, like this is hard for me because I'm not a Java developer. Like I had to rely on like AI quite a bit here to help me out. Trying to think of how I want to approach this. Because what I want to highlight here is like the here. Well, so, all right. So what did it say that my error was? Oh, it might be that I just don't have things imported appropriately. So let me go over to this file here and ensure that I have all these imports. Yeah. So, all right, let's try this again. Hopefully this will work this time. Oh, I keep moving my hat like the other way because like my video's mirrored. All right. Okay, so failed to execute. And then I'm going to go into here. I'm getting this error still. All right. Generating. All right, so I'm going to apply that. Then I'm going to apply that. So, okay. Did I already do that one? Oh, I must have already done both of these. All right, let's make sure that this is correct now. All right. Well, shoot. like this is the fun of working as a software engineer. Is when you don't know things and they don't work, it's not super fun when things don't go well. All right, so I'm trying to think. You know I think what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna take the final code and just kind of walk you through everything that because I know the final code works. And then kind of just to walk you through how I built everything out. So first of all, let me see that this final code will build appropriately. And I'll close this out. Okay, it looks like this is my final code's going to build all right. All right, open in browser. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about what we're going to be doing here. So you might recall from the default code that we downloaded from Vaadin that we don't have like these different options. So what we want to be able to do here is we want to be able to like select the crust size. You'll notice that the subtitle is, or I'm sorry, the subtotal is dynamically updating each time. And then so with our toppings, we can select the various toppings, and then we can select like the various veggies. So the subtotal's updated. And then when we click like the percentage radio button, you'll see that we have the appropriate tip amount here. Okay, so the way there are a number of things that we want to address in here. All right, so the very first thing that I want to address is what do I want to show here? Okay, so this is these are the final files. I want to go back to the raw files just to show the raw files and talk through them. And apologies again that this is not working out exactly as I intended. It's just the life of being a software engineer. Okay, so this is again the raw code that we downloaded. So something I want to highlight here. You might notice down here we have these two little private I don't know what you want to call them, like objects, and then we have this sample item here. So you'll notice with the sample item is referring to something known as a record object. I'm not a Java developer. I don't know what a record object. The way I understand it is basically a record object is a way to hold like a little bit of data. So you can see here, like the sample item is holding a value, like three different variables here. We have a value, a label, and a Boolean. Now, we are going to make use of this. However, we need to update this because when we think about value, we are going to want to store like the dollar amount value associated to something. So what this is going to basically represent here at the end of the day is our what I'm calling the pizza items. So with each individual pizza item, you'll have, like, let's say you have your crust. So like our crust here will be, might have the label of medium or small. And then our value is going to be like the dollar amount. Now, so this is incorrect. Like for our purposes, this is incorrect. We don't want a string because a string is just text. We want this to represent an actual value. So we're going to change that to float. And then you'll see that as we come down here with each of these different selectors, this is the like how each of the selection boxes are built out. Now, the one thing that I'm not wild that Vaadin did was, remember that we created two different multi-select selector fields. So we had the meat topping selector, and then we had the veggie selector. By default, it's actually this is referring to the same thing. So that so this is both both the meat and the veggie selector are pointing to the exact same thing here, which means that we're going to have to separate this out so then we can clearly delineate, here's our meat toppings, here's our veggie toppings. And then you might have noticed that there is a third value here of a Boolean value. And we're going to keep this in here because the nice thing about this is with that Boolean value is you can actually do different things with it. So you can notice here by default, it says that the Boolean is set to true here. And what that basically means is if this is set to true here, then when you go into the user interface, then like this particular third option here will not be selectable. So if you want to flip that back into being selectable, you would just have to flip this Boolean value into just being a null value, or I guess a false value. All right, so let me demonstrate how I did that in the final code here. So if I come on down into our final code, so I updated our first one here of the crust options, and you can see here that I have the value of what the crust size should be. So we have this is going to be a small crust. It's going to cost $8, and so that's why we have the 8 here. And you'll notice that I did update this to the appropriate string from string to float here, and I did rename it to pizza item just to be very specific here. And then you can see that in order to just add the various options, you just need to keep adding new line items here. So if I wanted to add a fourth line item here that said crust options dot add new pizza item, and I'm going to call this I'm just doing so that was GitHub Copilot just doing an AI autofill for me. But you can see here that we've now added this fifth option here. So if I were to go in here, and again, if somebody figures out the whole dynamic refresh thing, that would be amazing. But I just couldn't do it. So the only way I know how to do it is, again, killing the application and restarting it. So now that we've restarted our application, let's go ahead and it's going to take a second to get going again. And then we should see our fifth option show up in here today, hopefully. Sometimes this kit is a little bit slow. I guess it depends on what machine you're running it on. Again, I really do like GitHub CodeSpaces. I will say that my Mac is faster, but whatever. So all right, so now that we come in here, now you can see our party size has shown up. Now, if we want to alter these other respective fields here, it's the same idea. Now, recall again here that by default, this was one both of these fields over here were referring. Well, I don't know why it's not showing up now. Yeah, both the meats and the veggies were pointing to the same object, so I basically just did a copy and paste and split them out here. And so you could see here, if I wanted to add another meat option, meat options dot add. Hopefully, ChatGPT will fill this in for me. Yeah, pizza item. So if you want to add chicken there, and let's go ahead and add another veggie options in here. Veggie option, not new. Okay, we're going to add spinach, I guess. All right, ChatGPT, whatever you say. Whatever you say. All right, we'll add some tomatoes to it too. And then meat options, let's add beef. Okay, let's add another one. Meat options. And again, so this is what I'm showing here. I'm using this tool called GitHub Copilot, where all I basically have to do is tab, and AI is kind of doing this code for me. This is exactly why software engineers are using these tools today, because it just makes life so much easier. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and close out of these and then refresh our thing here. Okay, clear. All right, so I'm gonna run Maven again. And by the way, you might be noticing that like I'm typing those in really fast. I'm not actually typing them. I'm just pressing the up and down arrow keys on my keyboard, and then GitHub CodeSpaces will remember like the last commands you've run, and that's what I'm doing there, just to kind of move things along. Okay, so all right, so we've let's go ahead and open this again here, and now you will see we have our additional options. So if I want to add chicken, beef, salami, and I want to add, we're gonna make this a crazy pizza. It's gonna be have everything under the sun, and let's make our party. It's party size, so it's gonna be 27.25, and then I'm going to add my tip amount. So you might be wondering, okay, so how do we get the subtotal to update appropriately? So let me go back to my code. And the thing I want to highlight in here is if we now I had to do something special in here. Like, I don't know why this didn't work appropriately, but I did actually have to instantiate like my selector, like my computational variables, if you will, up at the top here. So I have a couple of variables of things that I'm interacting with directly. So this subtotal, this H4, that's just again, H4 is a header field. It is just a text field basically, and this is going to be our subtotal value label. And you can see that I have created a special function here, and this special function here I called update subtotal. So what the update subtotal is it's going to take in the crust size, the meat, the veggies, and the label, and it's basically going to, okay, our subtotal is going to start off at 0 again, and we are just basically going to keep adding the various things that we need from our as the pizza items get added, we just need to keep adding the subtotals there. Now, to be honest, I had to use AI to help me to figure this out. So hopefully this helps you kind of see how you interact with Vaadin to be able to get at these different variable types. But then you might be wondering, okay, so we made the function, so how does the function get called then? Or like, how does the function get invoked from the user interface? And so again, we have our Vaadin components down here. This is all the components that Vaadin built for us. So if we scroll on down to like the crust selector. So this is our crust selector that I've created here, and then or we have our meat selector. So all of these different Vaadin objects have what are called listeners associated to them. And what a listener is basically, as the name sounds, is anytime it is listening for any time there is a change going on here. So with our various listeners here, you can see that basically we have our listeners, and then that are like, so anytime we make we interact with any of our selector fields here, then we can just invoke our custom function here and pass in our different input things here, and then it will update this subtotal value label here appropriately. So it sounds and this is why I created the tutorial, because transparently, when I first started to delve into this, this was super confusing to me. But after fiddling around with it, it's actually not too bad, and that's why I wanted to create the tutorial to kind of illustrate once you kind of start to see what's going on in here, it becomes rather intuitive and rather easy to work with, I think. Okay, so let's. The other thing I want to highlight here is with our radio button group. In order to update our radio button group, is we just come down into here to our set items, and then we can set the 10 or 15% or the 20% sorts of things. And then I do have a custom tip amount field here. Now, the one thing I want to highlight here is you'll notice here that there, by default it is hidden. And so what happens is I've set a listener on the radio buttons here, that when this button is clicked, the custom button is clicked, you could see that it will show the custom amount here. So if I type in 923, then you will see that the tip amount has been updated appropriately. Whereas if I were to click one of the radio buttons, it will just dynamically create the tip amount. And so the way the tip amount is generated, where is the code that does that? Yeah, so instead of creating a custom function, I just made, again, I used AI here, but I kept it really simple. It is basically just doing a multiplication of the whatever the string was times the subtotal times percentage. That's basically what it is. But so there's that. Now, the one other thing that I want to highlight in here is even though we instantiate all of our different our things in here, you actually have to add them to this other thing to get them to show up in the interface. So what do I mean by that? So let's say I added a third thing in here. I'm going to call it another H2 thing. I'm going to call it subtitle 2. Oh, yeah. So, okay. So AI just helped me out there just to create this here. But what I want to highlight here is, so even though I've added it to here, so let's go ahead and kill and restart our application. We'll give it a second to restart, and then we'll show what I'm talking about here. Okay, this will take a second. Okay. All right, let's go ahead and open our browser. Now, so you should see the text that we just added right below here, but no, it is not here. Why is that? And the reason for that is in this section here where we're instantiating all of our different components and what we want our components to do, we actually have to go down and what did I call this? I called this subtitle 2. We need to go and add this down here to this thing where it's like the get content.add, so you can see all these different things that I've added in here. So I'm gonna go ahead and add my subtitle 2 here, and now save it, and again restart our kill the application, restart the application. I wish I had the dynamic refresh working. I tried my darndest to get the dynamic refresh working. I just could not get it for the life of me. Not sure why. If anybody knows, very happy to hear that out. But anyway, so, all right. Shit. All right, so it's open now, and now our text is there. So just a little gotcha I wanted to bring up there. Okay, so that is that piece. Now you might be wondering, okay, so we have our well, so let's go back to our order. I hope I kept this open. I'm going to go ahead and create a basic pizza here. Now, I did add some special code. I'm not going to walk through this code, but if you'll notice here, I have not selected any veggies quite yet. So if I click the submit button, you'll notice that it won't go to the next view. Instead, it comes up with this alert button that says, or alert message that says, please select something. Or so if I didn't have that either, so then you'll see that it dynamically updates with the things that you need to do. I have the code in there. I wouldn't worry about that too much. But anyway, so I'm going to go ahead and just make a random pizza here. And so when I click the submit order button, oh, I didn't click that. All right, now you will see that it will take us to our order confirmation screen, which is currently not updated. This is I'm still working on some of this here. But you might be wondering, well, how do I at least program that button to get it to go over to this page? And the way that works is with our button here. So we have our button. Now this is all the custom code I was referring to that make sure that all the fields have been filled in appropriately. But let's say it is all filled in appropriately. This is how we pass all of our parameters of what we did over to the other interface that we can actually load those things in, and actually like loading in like the total and like the subtotal and whatever and whatnot. So we add all these to the query parameters, but this is one I want to call out here specifically, is that in order, like, we want to navigate on over to our confirmation view screen here, and so you'll notice that it's referring to confirmation screen view.class. Now I actually did have to add this as a special import here. So I did have to import like this thing here. So that's all it's doing. But that's how you navigate on over to the other page here. And I'm just trying to see what else do I want to cover in here. Because again, we could spend all day here covering these things, and I'm going to cover a good chunk of this in the text-based tutorial as well. But yeah, so basically what I would know is in terms of the Vaadin components, like you shouldn't have to mess around with these too much, like especially like the titles and such. Like you're not going to need to mess around with those at all. And then in terms of getting like the selectors all going, I demonstrated how you do that. It's pretty easy to update these appropriately. I guess when you think about like the backend code on what you want things to do, is I think about this computational function section that I've created in here. This is more or less where your backend code is going to go. So I have an update subtotal thing in here, but I haven't created the code yet for the updating the actual total itself. So the subtotal is just the cost of the pizza before tip and tax, which now that I think about it, I didn't add tax either. All right, well, now I need to add a tax thing. But anyway, I'm gonna add additional functions in here that will calculate that total and whatnot. Now I guess I could theoretically import them from other Java files, but I'm not a super savvy Java developer myself, so I would directly just continue to make updates to here. And then you will see in our confirmation screen view, like the confirmation screen view is actually going to be a lot easier, just because the confirmation screen view is more or less just text. And you'll see, so you can see here that like I don't like this is like all the old information. So actually, let me go ahead and grab the clean code for that as well. So I'm going to go ahead, go back up in here. I'm going to Pizza Maker, and then and again, this is not quite done yet. I just wanted to get this out today because I know the guys that I'm mentoring are ready for this. So I wanted to at least get the video tutorial out the door, and then hopefully over the rest of the weekend I'll be able to get the rest of this tutorial complete. All right, so here is my code that represents my confirmation screen. So I'm going to go ahead and copy all of this code into here. Okay. And you will see here that, okay, so so coming back to our view here, you'll notice that we have like this contact information stuff. So in order to update these appropriately is we create a details section, and then we have details associated to that section. So let me go ahead and stop this application and restart it just to show you, because I believe I do have this code working. All right, so let me go ahead and rerun this. Okay. Okay. And I'll take a second to build. And all right, let's go ahead and open it in our browser. Okay. And just for context, I'm not sure why, like right now, it's not accepting my custom font selection. I don't know if that's just a GitHub CodeSpaces thing or what, but like it does work fine otherwise. And I'm also not sure why that was showing up as a like blue text. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and build a fake pizza. Select a couple options here for toppings. Select my tip amount. And then you can see here, so if I wanted to, like now these are appropriately updated to where they are showing all the different things that we had selected. And you don't have to do something like this, but I just thought it was cool. And again, the way that you do that is within these different meat topics, like within these topping section, we are just loading these in. I guess that's a good thing to bring up. So the way that we load those in as like the parameters from the other file is first we set all of our different variables, and then again you might recall that we had used this thing called the query parameters that Vaadin offered us, and so we're basically just able to read those in from as we load this interface up. Okay. And then we store all those variables in. And then when we get to like these respective sections, then you can see that we can just go into our meats variable and grab all that information appropriately. Okay. And so as I mentioned, I have not completed this quite yet. So you'll see that like the subtotal, tax, and tip are not being calculated correctly. However, when it comes to the confirmation screen view, I would actually recommend like all of the computation of those variables should be calculated in the order taker view. And basically what I'm saying is so when it comes to the confirmation screen view, it should be rather minimal on what you're altering. You shouldn't be doing any so there's actually no computation going on in here in this file. It's just reading in stuff or like the things that we computed from our order taker view. Because then otherwise everything else here is pretty much just like the stuff that we've been working on, just a little laid out a little bit different. Okay, and I will clean up this file as well. This file is not quite done yet. This one is, or getting close. And I'm trying to make it extra clear with lots of fun comments and a little header section. So, okay. Let me see. I just want to check my notes here really quick to see that I covered everything that I wanted to today for today's stream. Okay. And, okay. Calculating that. Yep. Okay, I covered everything I wanted to for today. Okay, so again, I will continue to update the text-based tutorial that is on my personal GitHub account there. So if you just go to, well, let me just show you again really quick. If you want to go to DK Hundley, or it's github.com/DK Hundley, and then it's the simple Vaadin UI. I will provide any links or any information. Very happy to answer any questions from my high school mentees after the fact, or and not just my group necessarily, but like if you're in another group within the class and you want to learn more about Vaadin, feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to answer any questions. Yeah, I think that's all I wanted to cover today. So again, this was a special one-time stream. I will not be doing anything with Vaadin after this myself. I don't have any particular need to. I want to get back to the AI stuff and to the user who commented that that they want more streams on data and machine learning. They are coming. They are coming. This was just a special one-time one. So all right. So that ends up that wraps up everything for today. I hope you all have a great weekend, and I will see you in the next one.